There you go.
There we go. We are live.
It's the Mustache Podcast.
It's a me, Jessy, with the Zach and the Reid. We're the Mustache Podcasters.
Well, that's got to make it in somewhere.
And there goes all of our Italian listeners.
No.
And Mario fan listeners.
So I was just saying I felt really left out because I don't actually have a mustache. I'm coming out as
making
mustache.
fun of a Mario. I love a Mario and Luigi and Waluigi. I don't know how he do that.
I can't believe I would do that.
I can't believe the Cinematary. I'm never watching the Cinematary ever again.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
Losing them by the dozens, week after week.
You want to see the Cinematary fun fact, Jess? You'll like this.
Oh boy, he just puts it in.
Remember, last week we were talking about In the Realm of the Senses, so...
Probably made sense in context. That's good.
Yeah, there's a lot of just,
I gotta think that I'm not the only one who probably feels that the Cinematary fun facts are maybe one of the highlights of every episode. And you only get that content if you watch the YouTube video of it. So,
yeah.
Congratulations to you if you're watching this right now.
My personal favorites are the Pabst Blue Ribbon ads. Nobody else likes them, but I just find them to be a joy. It's pure improv.
That's really good. Should I get like a drink or something so that
I don't have any PBRs at the moment, so I can't do it. I can't do an ad this
honestly.
week.
I could get like some kombucha or something.
Yeah, no.
I've been drinking lots of kombucha lately. It's good for your gut.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
It's good too.
For gut health.
It's good for gut health, and also it's probably better for me than like a Coca-Cola, which is what I've been wanting to drink lots of lately. So.
All right. We'll go Reid and then Jess for the order.
Sweet. All right, Zach, give me a moment of grace just in case I'm going to hit record, but you know how I'm always cursed, so like it should work because I tested it like 3 times before, but you know how that goes sometimes. Okay.
I'll just sit here and stare for a couple seconds.
Just I could just go ahead and start recording now, and you could just edit like a few seconds out or something.
That's fine.
Let me all right, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm going. It worked.
I don't know why you had to count.
I don't know.
Testing.
1, 2, 3. It's working.
I'll look forward to that in the edit.
I can just delete it.
No, keep it. It'll be good. All right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1. And welcome to episode 418 of Cinematary. I'm your host, Zach Dennis, and I'm here with
Reid Ramsey
and Mustachioed Jess.
Today's episode, the 3 mustachioed podcasters will be talking about movies that we saw this week in part 1. And in part 2, we're going to continue our Young Critics Watch Old Movies series with 1989's Heathers, as we start bringing Young Critics down to a close. Real quickly, head over to Cinematary if you've not caught up with the series so far. We just got through the 70s, which was full of fellatio, but we got other things that are not full of fellatio around the series. So you can go back from the 20s, the 30s, 40s, and so on. Head over to cinematary.com to listen to those, and then I think probably
you will not be listening to fellatio. You will be listening to people talking about fellatio.
We don't know what the Patreon exclusives are.
You have to subscribe for that.
Yeah. But I think we'll have probably series for the rest of the year. Maybe for next week. I don't know. Something like that.
We're working on it.
Yeah, we'll have our last Young Critics next week, and we'll announce our next series. And then I think the following 2 weeks we'll have TIFF Diaries from Reid, Andrew, and I.
Cha-cha.
So we'll give you all the insights on all the movies that are happening in Toronto. Anyway, all right, let's jump into movies that we saw this week. Let's jump in. Let's jump in first with Reid and his pet lion.
Yeah, it is. It is my lion. I adopted this lion.
And send it out after Idris Elba and his family.
Yeah, I mean, someone needs to after this movie. It's not in too good a shape.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about the movie Beast, starring Idris Elba, released this week. Jess alluded to this actually in the pre-show, but it is more or less Jaws, more or less like a shark movie, but set in Africa. This family, led by Idris Elba, who are kind of in this period of mourning as a family. I won't go into that more, but like they're going like back to their mom's home in Africa to like kind of go on a safari, see some of their like past friends and stuff like that, and they, of course, get attacked by a lion. Who,
Of course.
yeah, naturally. So they have basically this lion has been, you learn early on, been like the victim of poaching. So there's like kind of environmentalism bent to the movie. Like the lion is upset because his family's been killed by poachers, and I guess this lion is really like advanced and has watched a lot of other lions and animals get killed by poachers. So he's just kind of hell bent on taking some revenge on any humans he sees. So I've also forgot to mention this safari's led by a character played by Charlton Copley, who is just like really fun whenever he shows up in movies, I think.
Also, mustache guy.
Yeah. He just he just plays like this crazy like guy that goes on safaris basically. I mean, he's like a nice guy, but like he's very bizarre as you want him to be, and like leads this family through the safari, and then ultimately like tries to lead them to be to lead them to safety as well. But it is like the most dad movie I think I've seen in a long time. Idris Elba bonding with his
The most dad movie of all time. Yeah.
bonding with his daughters, but and just trying to get them through this tough moment. And I do want to say that while Idris Elba is like a movie star, in this he just plays like this kind of like scared doctor. Like he's very adept at like anytime injuries come up, but other than that, he's not really that competent. So he's not like this like super buff, like just like he's not like The Rock in a movie, basically, you know, where The Rock no matter his profession, you're like, yeah, this guy's gonna like beat up some people. He's much more like laid back, and he doesn't want to like get in on it and like beat up this lion. But I mean, you're paying to see this movie. You do get to see like a man punch a lion. Like it's pretty.
That's you have to get that at least.
Yeah.
I like that he's just like an average doctor. He's not like the top, physician in LA. It's like, no, he has like a solid practice like in the middle of Kansas.
Yeah, he's just supporting his family.
Yeah.
He's just doing what he can do, as all dads do, or in this movie.
Yeah. I want to know what the bigger dad movie of the year is, Beast or Top Gun Maverick, because that's a tough one to.
I mean, play them back to back. But,
dad double feature.
Yeah.
Double feature.
I mean, more dads should. Well, maybe not Tom Cruise, but more dads should try to be like Idris Elba for sure.
More dads should ignore any sort of life up until their 50s,
Yep.
and then and live in a hangar, living out the past, and then
exactly.
Yeah.
But no, it's pretty good. Like it's definitely worth seeing. For the the lion's actually really well done, and I've seen a lot of people talk about this. It's like way more convincing than anything in the live action Lion King that Disney spent just like millions and millions on, which like I imagine most of the budget of this movie probably went to the lion, I bet, because it's like a good CGI lion.
It's like RRR where it's like the CGI animals?
Yeah, and I think it looks even a little bit better than that. But like in that movie, they like obviously make all these animals and stuff, and in this one, it's like I think most of the animals in this movie are probably real, except for a couple lions. So they've spent most of their money to like get this like one lion really, really good, and it is like it's visually interesting. I realized this while watching. So many of the takes are like these really extended long takes, like 6-7 minute long takes, basically, with like the floating camera going through all these places and stuff. I had this like feeling that the director like wanted this to be like one of the single take movies, and then didn't like plan it out right.
It was like,
So then just like got to the edit and was like, wait, this doesn't work as a single take movie. So it's not one of those.
yeah.
But like almost every shot is just this really like extensive, elaborate, like long take shot, which is really bizarre. But it does kind of highlight the CGI that's good and some of the performances which are good. Like Idris Elba's the girls that play his daughters are both really good too. They're Leah Jeffries and Ayana Halley. Also, a fun piece of trivia that I saw as well that apparently Idris Elba admitted in an interview is that his own daughter auditioned to play his daughter in the movie and didn't get it because they didn't have good enough chemistry.
That's kind of funny.
I didn't talk to him for weeks after that. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, how do you come back from that? You don't have good enough chemistry with your own dad compared to these random actors.
I imagine too, it was like a total like nepotism shoe-in thing, and she was just so bad that they were like, we can't even give you the nepotism hire, man.
Like, we're not even convinced she's your daughter. Like,
she like adopted or something? What's going on?
But yeah, that's Beast. There's not a whole lot else to say. It's a pretty straightforward thriller, but definitely worth your money if you're into kind of creature feature type movies.
I hope it becomes like a franchise that's similar to like where it's like the lion follows them to different places. Like this time they went on the African safari, but like next time they go like on a trip to like Iceland and the lion shows up, and then like they go on a trip to like Burlington, Vermont, and then the lion shows up.
What?
Like I want that to happen.
Burlington, Vermont.
Yeah, that's number 3.
Beast in Burlington.
Yeah. See, there you go.
Yeah, writes itself.
Wow.
Yeah. It's directed by like J.J. Abrams. Like, it does make some money back. There's a lens flare. Well, Beast, call Dad. Call your dad up. And
call your dad. See if he's free.
Yeah, and go head over to see Beast. It's the dad year at the movies. That's what can we tell you?
Year of dad.
You're a dad at the movies. What can we tell you? Speaking of dads, Jesse, you saw a movie where there was a man who's old enough to be a father.
Sure did. Well, we're talking about bodies, baby. I just caught this at Central Cinema here in Knoxville, but it's kind of playing everywhere. So, guess it's sort of like a I don't know if like slasher is the right category for the movie. Definitely like a horror movie where people are slowly getting picked off one by one, and you're sort of trying to figure out, who is the slasher. And so it's directed by Helena Rajan. I might not be pronouncing that right. And it's starring none other than Pete Davidson, Amanda Stenberg, and several others. But basically, Amanda.
Yeah, it's a very obnoxious name.
Yep. But basically, a bunch of, I guess, young 20-somethings go to this like big mansion for what they're calling a hurricane party, and they decide to play. It's basically like their version of the game Werewolves, and I thought it was funny because they actually make a joke where there's this older guy. Did you watch it, Zach, or have you just seen? Okay, because you mentioned there's this older guy that's like hanging out with them that's like clearly like probably pushing 40 or something, and he's like dating one of these Zoomers.
Yeah, but it's Lee Pace. He's beautiful.
Sure, but I mean, he's definitely out of place. And anyway, he like makes a joke saying like, "Are you guys still playing werewolves?" And because like I'm watching it and thinking like, this is just like werewolves. You're just calling something else, and you're not like talking about it. But anyway, their version of werewolves, where somebody gets like a card that says that they're the killer, and they have to go and like just tap you on the shoulder, and then you die. And then what I thought was kind of neat about the premise was they like turn off all the lights in the house, and then they're just all kind of wandering around the house, and they all have like a little flashlight, but they have to scream bodies when they find a body, and you don't know who amongst them is the killer, so at any point you could be killed too. And they're trying after a body's found, they take a round to try to guess who the killer is. And they originally on top of this, like they've been like drinking a bunch, smoking a bunch, just taking a lot of drugs. So they're all kind of like revved up with this adrenaline anyway. And they mention when they're deciding whether or not they want to play the game, like, hey, this always gets really volatile. We always get to arguing. Maybe we shouldn't do it, but they decided to do it anyway. Well, one thing leads to another, and somebody ends up actually dead. And I'm not going to say who. But then everybody.
Will you like if it's Pete Davidson? Will you tell us?
I won't. I won't.
That'd be satisfying. I could go if I went in knowing that I would be fine.
I think you should see it. But so somebody ends up dead, and then they realize that there may be a killer in their midst. So they're trying to figure it out. And again, there's like kind of this perfect storm of a hurricane is going on outside. Half of these young people whose like brains are not fully developed are like coked out or like in other ways drugged. So they're all just kind of like, it actually honestly to me felt a little bit like, oh shoot, what's that movie? With the dancers and it's in French. Oh my goodness, Climax. It actually reminded me a little bit of Climax, just in how like, you know, people are like kind of taking these substances that are altering their like states of awareness and altering their decision-making abilities and their logic abilities, and then chaos ensues and it's just like amplified because they are not in a headspace. They probably couldn't have made appropriate choices anyway, but then add like drugs to it and add their tensions that they have amongst each other. I think a lot of people kind of see it as a movie that's making fun of Zoomers and just like how melodramatic they can be, and maybe how they've taken buzzwords and kind of used them so much that they've kind of lost meaning. Words like gaslighting, for instance, like we kind of see this as a buzzword floating around so much that, you know, are we actually using it to mean what we think it's meaning, or is it just something we're throwing out sometimes when we are losing an argument? I think that it kind of highlights the way that people kind of will throw these things at each other and have arguments that have kind of like lost their meaning, but at the same time, maybe just showing this profound way that people are having trouble like communicating, connecting with each other. Like I didn't see it by the end of it. I didn't really see it as a movie that is like actually genuinely angry towards Zoomers, but maybe I'm being a little charitable towards it. I thought it was kind of smart. I don't know, kind of in just how it, I don't know, shows that they are young too. I'm thinking about like how people, you know, learn to have arguments through their families, and also how our brains develop, you know, over time and through our 20s, and or our brains aren't fully developed until our later 20s. And I'm thinking about all these people like just trying to be little adults, and it's not their fault that, you know, based on the things that they've learned and based on the things that they've seen in the world around them, that they don't know how to have these conversations and they don't know how to de-escalate. And so like there's a lot of situations in the movie where things get tense and people have weapons and everybody is so escalated and like so distrustful of each other. It's almost like The Thing too, in that way, like who among us, right, is the killer here. And they can't, they just cannot de-escalate, and so like it stays so escalated and so tense for so long for so many reasons. I don't know, I guess as somebody too who works like who can work in crisis sometimes and works to help like try to like, you know, depressurize things, I'm watching it and thinking like, man, they just need like one person of like who could just help slow this down. And so many, this could have gone in such a different direction. But I thought just overall the movie was like a lot of fun. The music is really great. The visuals, there's so many dark scenes in it, which can't always be handled well. I think there's a lot of instances where movies like that, you just can't see shit. And it could be that I watched it in the theater, and so that, you know, the quality of it was really good. But I thought they did a really cool job doing those dark scenes and making them just sort of tense with the way they did the lighting, but never in a way that's annoying. And sometimes movies like that can be a little annoying with the way that it's shot, but you could see things really well. And then they were really careful too with like having some bright colors thrown in there. Number one, just to make it look kind of more poppy and fun, but also just to add a little bit of a suspense to it as people are kind of like climbing and crawling and hiding in this like large space. And the acting is just so good. Everybody, it just plays such a ridiculous character that actually makes some really good points in the, but like between like yelling and screaming and just like being total idiots. I had a lot of fun in the movie, and I thought it was smarter than I was expecting, and just really good. I mean, I thought it was a very solid. I liked it.
Going back to different terms for things, when one of the Gen Z people kills another one of the Gen Z people, do they refer to it as a microaggression?
Oh my, no, there is definitely.
They should.
That might be a real aggression.
I think that's more than a microaggression. I will
That's
say
what I get thrown.
there are
It
multiple
gets thrown at me a lot.
there are multiple conversations where people are talking about the importance of podcasting. So if nothing else.
That's unfortunate, to be honest.
So if nothing else, toot your own ego and watch Bodies, Bodies, Bodies so you can feel affirmed in your need to podcast or listen to podcasts. I don't know. You should see it. It's great. It's fun. If you like a good whodunit slasher movie, and you want to hang out with Pete Davidson in hopes that he may or may not die, check it out. You'll see for yourself.
I feel like he does. I feel like you put Pete Davidson in a movie where people are being murdered, you just make that call easy.
He also has this scene that's just, you've probably saw it in the trailers if you've seen the trailers, where he's just like, I mean, look at me. I have such a fuckable face. And you're just looking at Pete, and he's just kind of like when he says it too, and you're just like, sorry, you can't hear this. It's audio. I keep forgetting it's an audio medium. He just has his, like, I swear he just goes out of his way to kind of like just stick out his teeth and like make the most bizarre face. He also has a big black eye when he says it too. And he's like, look at me. I've got such a fuckable face. And I'm like,
that's good, Pete Davidson.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Zach. I'm an actor. Check it out. Bodies, Bodies, Bodies.
All that A24 hype, you know?
Mm-hmm. It's not a dad movie, though. I wouldn't take your dad to see it.
Yeah.
Unless Lee Pace is, daddy to you. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe take your daddy. But don't take your dad.
Yeah. All right. Well, I watched a movie that's also technically a new release, but this one came out on HBO and HBO Max and all those programs recently. It's called We Met in Virtual Reality. It's directed by Joe Hunting, and this one's kind of it's one of those, like, it's fine, but it's a very fascinating like concept and like what's going on kind of thing. So this takes place entirely in I forgot what the
virtual reality.
No, but I forgot what the platform's called.
Is it Meta?
No, it's something else. But it's filmed entirely in this platform, this virtual reality world, and you're following these various relationships and characters who you never see like what they actually look like. You're just completely talking to their avatars. And this is it's not like virtual reality where it's like you have the mask and like little like joysticks. These are people who have like a whole have like the gloves and that kind of stuff and the mat, and like are like moving around in like their living rooms and stuff, because like there's the one character who the ones that you follow, there's one character who is she is single, and she teaches ASL in virtual reality, and then you have two couples that you follow. You have the one person in the couple who she does like dance classes, which just the whole concept of that, of like you have this like the person who teaches ASL, like there's like this whole school of learning ASL, and it came out of people who who are deaf, who have to use ASL but want to play or like be a part of the virtual reality space, but can't express themselves. So it's like utilizing that and like teaching other people how to utilize that, which is kind of fascinating. VR chat, that's what it's called. That's the platform. But you have this other one, she's like teaching dance classes and things like that. You have a couple other folks who The whole thing is it predominantly was built out of the lockdown, the COVID lockdown. And it's, a lot of the people talk about how it's they utilize this space. Some of them have like social anxiety, struggle to meet people in physical relationships, but they feel much more comfortable like in VR chat. And so a lot of them have really found this community within virtual reality. And so I like it because the documentary is less about like, oh, look at virtual reality, isn't that weird? Like, oh my gosh, like look at them move. It's less about like the mechanics of it and more about how people have become comfortable with the apparatus to find connections within the space. Like two of the characters that you follow get married, and they're not married in real life, but they're married like in the virtual reality space. And a lot of these couples have like met in person at least once. One of them talks about how he is in, I believe, Miami, and then she is in London, and the COVID lockdown really hurt them because this was at a point in time where I think it was like he could go see her, but she couldn't go see him. And so they have like real life interactions with one another, but at the same time, the COVID lockdown is making it more difficult. And so, like I said, the documentary, I think overall it's fine. It gets kind of drony, and just the fact that it doesn't really, it very much is just working on one level. You're following these characters and these people around, doing different things, and you're kind of interacting with other places. And like I said, it's filmed entirely in this virtual reality space, and so there's a lot of like there's a lot of these kind of pillow shots or just like in between scenes from when they're doing interviews and stuff where you're just kind of exploring different spaces. There's one, you'll go to a lot of different like parties, or I think one is like on New Year's, and like it's all these people, celebrating New Year's. I think the beginning of 2021 in VR chat, and it's interesting to listen to them talk about the different styles and looks that they give their avatar, the different like the ways that they met the other person, for the two couples, the way they met the other person on the chat. And just kind of like, I don't know, I think it's a very empathetic documentary to virtual reality. That's why I mentioned before, it's not like going, isn't this crazy, all this stuff that you can do, / isn't it weird that people are like engaging with one another in this way. It's more just like, I think because it's coming from the lockdown and the pandemic, it's kind of coming from, isn't this nice that all of these people that you meet in this documentary like have found communities, have found people to engage with and interact with and be friends with, even though they're not necessarily like going out and doing doing it in a more traditional way. And it kind of gives you a little bit of a to me, it kind of, I feel like it does have like this empathy toward, at the end of the day, it's about the interaction. If these, it's not like these people are just sitting inside festering, in their own thoughts and just kind of stuck. It's like, no, you may disagree with the fact that they're inside, playing in this platform, but at the same time, they're in this platform, they're, teaching courses, they're sharing skills, they're finding friends, they're finding, partners. Like, at the end of the day, it's like just this level of engagement. And so, at least for me, I was less cynical about it, because I think it's, after you spend this hour and a half with these different people, you kind of see that even though like I couldn't see myself making like a VR chat character and like participating in this platform in that way, it's nice that the people that you're following and other people you just kind of run into have found these different communities. You have moments where like you interact, they interact with other characters and things like that, and they just kind of talk about how they're able to find this intimacy of relationships while they're in this kind of lockdown. And it is kind of funny because like there's this one scene where one of the characters is sitting there and it's by like a campfire type thing with 3 or 4 other people, and like one of the characters is like a rabbit, and one of them is like, has like this like crazy hairdo, like but at the same time they're having this really like nuanced conversation about like how they met one another and how it helps them kind of go about their day from day to day. And so I think it's even though I'm not going to go, this is great documentary. I think it's one that's kind of fascinating. It deals with something. I watched it because it deals with something we talked about a couple months ago when we did the podcast on parasocial relationships. It kind of, I think it's a little bit adjacent to that, where, but at least in this one, like these people are finding this intimacy, are finding these communities that allow them to feel much more seen and much more realized than they do in reality, which it's kind of one of those to each their own type situations.
So the whole thing, it's all totally shot in VR. They never interview the people like in person. Yeah.
No, and I friend of the pod, Brian Welk, did an interview with the director that was interested and kind of asked that question, like, why did you ever think of like catching up with all the 5 main characters that you follow and like and he was kind of like, he's like, initially, we thought about it, but at the end of the day, he's kind of like, no, like I want them to be in like living within that space. I don't want it to be like, this is the character that you've been following for an hour and a half, and then this is what he or she looks like in person. And so I don't know. I think it's like an hour. It's like I said, it's an hour and a half. It's not too long. I think it brings up some fascinating points, and it also just shows you like the kind of possibilities of virtual reality, especially like advanced. Like that's why I mentioned at the beginning. Like it's not like you got the helmet on and like little joystick things. It's a little bit more advanced, and it's kind of cool that um it's cool that they're able to teach ASL, they're able to teach these dance classes, they're able to kind of do these different things. It's a little bit funny when like the 2 partners are like kissing one another, and you're just like what do you look like right now, like with the mask on and things like that. It's that kind of stuff is funny, but I think the documentary also, like I said, provides this level of empathy to these people that I think is nice. So we met in virtual reality. Like I said, it's on HBO and HBO Max. I think it's if you're kind of curious about like the relationships with technology and things like that, I think it's worth checking out, at least to check a box there.
Do they talk about like how much time each individual is on the VR chat? Like,
yeah, a little bit. I mean, they talk. Some of them have like. I mean, it's at the lockdown point, so a lot of them are working from home, but a lot of them have like remote jobs or things like that. They never get into like if there is like if they're able to make money through what they're doing in VR chat. It seems to me like they're just kind of like from what they talk about, like the one character is like, no, I like teaching ASL. I learned it from family. I met this this deaf person on VR chat and was really moved by her, and so I wanted to help her kind of establish this world that allows people to learn it. And like the person who does the dance class, like, I don't know, I just like dancing. I don't normally do it as much in person, and so it's kind of nice to be able to do it in this virtual space. And I just like to teach other people because then they get to get up and dance and do stuff themselves. So I think they kind of have remote jobs and things like that, but it's mainly it's you're going in there and kind of going, I'm hanging out with. It's like if you were going to hang out with friends and like get something to eat and go to the movies and get a drink afterwards. It's kind of like that. It's like I'm gonna go spend 4 or 5 hours with friends and do fun stuff.
Yeah.
But
it's very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's like I said, it's worth a watch if if that's those types of ideas are something that interest you.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be talking about some not Gen Zers, but some Gen Xers who are go a little too far with their high school world after this break. Did you do it, Jess? You get it all recorded?
I got it. And then some. A little bonus at the beginning.
What's up, Coop? Did you get sad that Ollie got, a whole... Let me get you one. Hold on, Coop.
Cooper, are you about to get a Cinematary fun fact?
Poop is the poop.
Coop is not the poop.
I say poop in the most, highest compliment.
Cooper's your bestie. Cooper misses you. He can't wait till you visit again so he can get all the snuggles.
Dude, me and Cooper get intimate. He gets right up on me in the
spoons.
bed.
Cooper spoons me,
He
but
does.
he thinks about you and when he's gonna get to spoon you again.
Like this little thought bubble, and there's just the two of us spooning.
Yeah.
And then Ollie will come over and be like, well, "What's going on here, guys?" He got a
And
whole...
does he stay or does he just kind of get bored?
He just kind of sniffs around well, I don't want to interrupt what's going on here.
I call Cooper. Cooper is the night cat. Cooper does all of the night snuggles. Ollie does the daytime snuggles, but he won't really stay and sleep with you. Cooper will actually stay and sleep with you all night.
Yeah. Cooper, you just got your feet hanging up, man.
He does, yeah. They're just hanging out.
Oh, man. Let's see.
Poops. He's the poop.
He's the poop. In the highest of ways. Oh, man. All right.
So fluffy. He's so fluffy.
I don't know where my fluff guy go. I think he went inside. Or they went into the living room.
You have a matching kitty. You need to go find him.
They're sitting on... They've been obsessed with this table, the little tray table thing that I use to eat. They've just been sitting on it. They've claimed it as their own. So they're probably sitting on that right now. And I love it because I get to go eat and have to brush off all their stupid hair and stuff.
Stinkers. Cats, they're
Fucking
such
assholes,
stinkers. Man. Yeah. That's stinkers. It's just their world and we're living in it,
My favorite is still the reason cats are better than dogs is that you would never see a cat become a cop, but dogs become cops.
What would a cat be?
I don't know, but it would never be a cop.
You can't fill in the dogs.
Oh, Reid, do you have a dog?
He's asleep.
I'm sorry, it would be open to the idea of becoming a cop. Look at...
He would be so bad at being a canine.
Look at Cooper. He's I can make him a cop.
His tail is reminding me of a big fuzzy caterpillar right now.
Yeah, it's really going. He's really intensely staring. What is he staring at?
No, it's probably... I've got these two windows behind me, and he's probably seeing bugs or something flapping against it, and that's probably what's got him staring so intently, if I had to guess. What is it, Coops? You gonna tell us?
No, he's just blissfully looking at that guy. I can't. All right, let's talk about Heathers.
Teenage suicide, Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
If you take away anything from this episode, we do not support teenage suicide.
Don't do it.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. And we're back with part 2 of episode 418 of Cinematary. In this part, we're going to be continuing our Young Critics Watch Old Movies series with 1989's Heathers. Directed by Michael Lehman from a script by Daniel Waters. The film stars Winona Ryder, Christian Slater, Shannon Daughtry, and Kim Walker. At Westerberg High, where cliques rule, jocks dominate, and all the popular girls are named Heather, it's going to take a Veronica and mysterious new kid to give teen angst a body count. Writer Daniel Waters began Heathers sometime after his 1985 move to Los Angeles. At the time, he was a 23-year-old video store clerk with ambitions to write a blockbuster teen film. According to the March 23rd, 1989 issue of the LA Times, Waters based the script on the high school experiences of his sister and her friends, as well as a chapter about the cultivation of female identity in Simone de Beauvoir's 1949 book, The Second Sex. He also told the LA Times that he had grown tired of Hollywood's romanticization of suicide and that he believed most people actually harbor an ultimate fantasy of attending their own funeral. Referring to the 1976 Martin Scorsese picture, Taxi Driver, Waters reportedly wrote the lead character Veronica as the female Travis Bickle, who sought uncompromising vengeance against her rivals. The original Heather screenplay ended with Veronica blowing herself up in an act of suicide, then attending her high school prom in heaven with all of her victims in attendance. Another ending has Veronica making peace with Martha at the end, but Martha pulls a gun from her wheelchair and shoots Veronica in the face. Then Martha would say, "Fuck you, Heather," and the scene would cut to bleeding Veronica on the ground saying, "My name's not Heather. My name's not Heather." After this, Martha would stand up from her wheelchair and declare, "I can walk," as Peter Sellers does at the end of Doctor Strangelove. Waters originally envisioned the film to be a 3-hour Stanley Kubrick high school film encompassing the entirety of the teenage experience. Of course, Kubrick did not direct it, and things were cut down considerably in the development stage. However, director Michael Lehman did use Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket as a visual guide for the film, particularly in the first cafeteria sequence. Before Christian Slater was cast, Brad Pitt, then a up-and-coming unknown actor, read for the role of J.D., and Jennifer Connelly rejected the role of Veronica before Winona Ryder accepted it. Winona Ryder started shooting the film when she was 15 and turned 16 during the production. This caused some problems because they were limited by the amount of time that they could have her on set each day. For example, the scene in which Veronica and JD murder the football players in the woods was supposed to be shot during the evening, but they had to shoot it during the day to accommodate Ryder's teaching schedule on set. Heather Duke reads Moby Dick throughout the movie, but it was scripted to be Catcher in the Rye. The production couldn't secure the rights to use the book, and Waters insisted that the film makes much more sense if you think of Catcher in the Rye rather than Moby Dick. In 1989, the New York Times said Heathers, a first feature directed by Michael Lehman, is as snappy and assured as it is mean-spirited. Its originality extends well beyond the limits of ordinary high school histrionics and into the realm of the genuinely perverse. The Washington Post in 1989 said Heathers is not pretty in pink, all pom-poms and puppy love, but bodacious in black chalkboard noir, the dark side of the wonder years. A cracked satire of the teen genre, it's slangy, raunchy, and gutsy as a prom date with Carrie. And in 1989, Roger Ebert said, "For a long time, we're not even sure of the point of view. Is this a black comedy about murder or just a cynical morality play? The traveler in the foreign country is not sure, but he knows the film inspires thought and has the ability to shock. Two qualities that make it worth considering. Maybe it's true that teenagers will understand it best. Maybe it's even true that they deserve to." On that note, let's talk a little bit about Heathers. Had anybody seen it before?
Yeah, I think this is maybe my third time seeing it.
This is my first, so good stuff. Yeah, I think you picked this for Young Critics, Jesse, so I'm going to start with you.
Yeah. Well, I think it's neat because it's, it's an 80s movie and it's definitely got, some of the recognizable fashion and I don't know, some of the tropes of 80s movies, while also kind of being something a little different. I think it's neat that this is very clearly like a major inspiration for Mean Girls, which I think was more of the movie of our generation. This feels kind of like somehow meaner than Mean Girls, but also kind of like if Mean Girls wasn't about her joining the clique, but actually more about her day-to-day experiences of being in the clique. And it's funny that you were saying that his vision of it was her. What was it that you said that she's like the female version of
Travis Bickle.
See, like I saw her a lot of the movie as kind of a victim in this relationship, where she kind of, I don't know, you know, kind of got tricked into it, and he very clearly knew what he was doing and knew how he was kind of manipulating her, and then sort of making it seem like it was her fault or making it seem like it was her idea or something that she wanted, and then her kind of feeling helpless to, well, like, what are you going to do now? Like, you're kind of an accomplice in this situation. And I, I don't know, very much a little bit trapped, I think.
Well,
So
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, I mean, she's trapped whether it's the relationship with the Heathers or even the relationship with JD. Like, she really doesn't
Yeah,
have much of her own agency either way.
right. And I mean, like, as easy as it is as an outside observer to say, like, well, she should just, be friends with somebody else. She should just do this. I think it's really hard for teenagers when they're, wanting, needing social acceptance. Um, um, so I don't know. It's kind of some initial reactions, but what did you think? Reed, was it your first time watching it too?
I had seen it once several years ago, and I watched it honestly thinking, I knowing nothing about it, thinking it was just like an '80s movie.
Yeah,
That's like actually maybe in some ways the best way to go into it because it's such a weird movie. Like it's
it really is.
dark. Like even knowing this time what would happen, I was still shocked by how dark this movie is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, although I did, so this time watching in the first murder, I'm not fully convinced that Veronica didn't know what she was doing. Like the way they cut it
Mm-hmm.
together, it almost looks like she takes the drink of like the what is it, like a drain cleaner or whatever,
Hmm.
like on purpose, and JD just doesn't stop her. Like he's obviously like driving a lot of it, but it's kind of like I thought that was kind of a weird moment because I read it the first time I watched it the same way you did, where she's just
Mm-hmm.
like accidentally involved in all this,
Yeah,
and then I wasn't positive that was the case in the first murder this time. I don't think like
yeah,
she wants to kill the football guys, but I think she's also being a little short sighted by not realizing he's going to.
yeah. I think she, especially with the first murder, I think she definitely could have done a little bit more to verify that that was just the gross cup and not the deadly cup. Um, but you know, I don't know, maybe she want part of her subconsciously wanted to kind of leave it to chance and make it an accident. But it's hard to say. I think, like,
Yeah,
if if she'd been more intentional, she wouldn't have picked that on purpose. But maybe there was a small part of her that, like, wanted to leave it to chance and wanted it to happen. But I also feel like there was definitely some manipulation there, and that she would never actually done something like this had it not been for him.
for sure. I mean, he's like such a dislikable character, like unbelievably dislikable. I think
Oh
like
yeah.
kind of weird because I don't. I think a lot of other people in the movie at times find him charming, and he does not give me that vibe at all.
I think I definitely thought he was charming, like, the first time I
Yeah,
watched this movie. And something I noticed big time about it this time watching it, it's not just with him, but it's like especially with him. Everybody talks very odd. Like,
yeah,
every interaction between, like, a child and a parent is super odd. But a lot of people's conversations, like whether it's him talking to her or her talking to her friends, nobody's conversations just feel like a real moment that people would have. It feels so very, it feels like people trying to make, like, quippy teenage dialogue or something,
yeah,
which is still something that we do. We just do it kind of differently now, I think. But wow, I don't know. But him especially, he talks so, it's just like so into, it's like, I don't know. Now I'm watching it and I do not see it as charming. I see it as, like, incredibly, I don't know, just makes my skin crawl.
Well,
But
it's very like it's very know-it-all arrogant. He just kind of like delivers diction, and
right.
you're just like, I want to punch you in the face.
But I think maybe she does find him refreshing in a way, because she
yeah,
does just surround herself with, like, eggheads and such inauthentic
Yeah.
company, that him actually kind of speaking, like, reality to something is very, very refreshing for her. Like even her conversations with her family just feel very like very stiff and scripted because there's literally like they replay the same scene like 3 times. Like, why am I doing this silly thing? Cause you're an idiot. I am. And then the mom saying, you too. And then her saying, well, I got a jet. Like they replay that same scene like 3 times in the movie. So maybe that's like what her appeal is to him, is that he just feels real and raw and perceptive of the like. And she talks about how she's like a little bit more intelligent than her age group, right? And so maybe she kind of likes that. But rewatching it now, I don't know. He also just kind of mimics like kids that I've met now working in like mental health over the years, and it just that also makes my skin crawl a little bit. But
yeah, Zach, you saying he's like arrogant though did make me think about like other protagonists from '80s movies at this point though, and like is kind of like if Ferris Bueller was a serial killer. Like if Ferris Bueller side, he's kind of like a arrogant idea guy. Like he's just gonna make something happen, but his version's gonna be really like terrible. And
the dialogue in the movie reminded me of like But I'm a Cheerleader, where it just has like this very like you're capturing the difference between like the main characters and everybody else just by how like basic and uninspired everybody else's dialogue is, and then you have the dialogue of like Winona Ryder or Christian Slater, and you're like, yeah, this is a lot different. And so it's like you can kind of, I was reading Ebert's review, and he's kind of complaining that you can't figure out whose movie it is, and I'm like, you can kind of tell though, because 2 of the characters are talking wildly differently than everybody else is talking, and it's not necessarily like this is just how teens talk. It's like, no, you just have like there's just like different like not volumes, but like different like just the speech patterns, the diction is just completely different between everybody else and those 2 characters.
For sure. Even like it's not like a movie condescending from like an adult's perspective either, because like it's really condescending towards the adults in the movie. Like,
you think of like the scene when the school administrators are like trying to figure out what to do, and you just have like a wide variety of crazy adults in different forms. I mean, you have just like the old principal who's just like, and then you have all the very like but just like disinterested, disengaged teachers, and then you have the
school counselor or whatever.
The school counselor is just like, let's all just love each other, like always. And it's just like, and they're all, but none of them, they're all just like these very, again, it's like very caricature-y, but it plays off of everything else and just kind of shows it's a good way of like going, this is how bland everybody else is, compared to the Winona Ryder character and the Christian Slater character.
Right.
That's why I say it reminded me a lot of But I'm a Cheerleader, because you get the same type of thing with like whenever Natasha Lyonne and Clea Duvall are like interacting, it's completely different than anybody when she's interacting with the woman who runs the house or her parents or something. So this being my first time seeing it, it's just like what you all have talked about, like it's just a wildly dark and different movie. It's funny to me that I think there's a lot of fans of this movie. I don't think it's definitely like a underseen movie, but I definitely feel like it doesn't have like it definitely feels like on a different tier than like the John Hughes high school movies.
Right. It's not Dirty Dancing. It's not like
or something like that. Yeah, but it's like, it's just so disappointing because like this movie is so endlessly quotable.
I love my dead gay son.
I mean, yeah. What is a better line than the guy crying over the casket saying, "I love my dead gay son," and they're in the football helmets with the ball. Like, I mean, it's amazing.
God, those scenes. Every funeral scene just gets like increasingly campier to the final one where people are like, for some reason, they're wearing 3D glasses and they're all in these like white suits, and your whole time you're watching, you're like, somebody say psych, right? And eventually they do cut and show that it's not real, but good Lord.
Yeah. Well, and it's just, and even the lines between like the Heathers and Veronica, like you have what did you have, a brain tumor for breakfast? You just have like, all these like insane lines that they're just tossing back. It's you mentioned before, Jesse, that it very much feels like a purveyor of Mean Girls, and it's kind of disappointing because I'm like, this one throws out as good of lines, if not better, than Mean Girls, and it's
Right.
kind of sad that it doesn't get the same quotability as that one. But
It's meaner somehow, I think.
it's
I
very
think much
meaner.
more mean spirited.
Yeah.
I actually, this is a random fun fact, but the writer, what's his name again?
Daniel Waters.
Daniel Waters. His brother directed Mean Girls.
Ah, wow.
Yeah.
Random fun fact.
Yeah.
This is kind of like, to me, this is sort of like some slightly softer version of Jawbreakers, but like a meaner version of Mean Girls. So it's almost like if Jawbreaker and Mean Girl like fused into one, like this is what meets right in the middle. And then Drop Dead Gorgeous, I think, is like maybe on the far end of just like straight up mean spirited movie. Jawbreaker is close, but I actually really liked Jawbreaker, even though I think it's just aggressively mean. It's meaner than this, and this is pretty rough, I think. But to me, I think like so much of this is like I think that Winona's character kind of sums it up when she's writing in her diary of like, I don't actually want this person to die. Like, conflict is like, this is just going to happen. I'm just really mad right now. And I'm expressing this in my diary because this is like a safe space to like vent and this frustration. But, I don't know. I'm also coming from this perspective of working with kids and having to sometimes, what's the word I'm looking for? Sitting down with kids who are saying that they're wanting to kill themselves or hurt somebody else, and having to have these conversations where I'm like figuring out what they're actually meaning, like what is their intent, because I think everybody at some point in their life has had the thought, God, I just wish she would die right now. I just like can't fucking stand this person. I wish they were dead. Or like people feeling just so overwhelmed by something and saying like, I wish I was dead right now. And that's not like that you really want that, but that this particular situation is so overwhelming that you wish you could just like fast forward through it and not have to live through whatever the thing is, whether it's frustrating or sad or painful. And so, young people especially have a hard time, especially when the situation is so much bigger than something they've ever dealt with before. Usually the pains that they go through are the biggest pains they've ever experienced in their life. And so, I don't know. I have this tendency to say teenagers are so dramatic, but they're dramatic because they're going through some of the most painful experiences. And so, I don't know. It's crazy to me too. Like, there's a scene in the movie where Christian Slater just pulls out a gun in the cafeteria and pretends to shoot somebody. Like, and then he's at school like the next day. It's ridiculous now. It's like, think that the scene was just in any way plausible at one point in history, and now like this would be like the news event of the week if something like that happened now.
Well, it's funny because I guess they were planning a Heather show, and it was around the time of like
Yes, I remember this.
Parkland, and like they shot the entire series, or like the entire season. They had it fully cast, all that kind of stuff, but they ended up not doing it because I think that just it deals with stuff. It's just a very fine line satire, and I think the movie itself handles it pretty well. But I mean, it's kind of one of those questions, that we always have. Like, is this a movie that could play if it came out, in 2022? And I'm like, I don't think it could, because quite honestly, I don't think audiences have the media literacy to kind of go, oh, this is satire. It's not real. It's not like advocating for any of this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's hard too, because like even like trying to take this movie from like decades ago, it is so unsettling at times, because it is a successful satire. Like, it's not just a fun movie by any means. Even with like the ridiculous one-liners or like the 80s like vibe, it's not really fun. And I think that's like an interesting line that it walks, because it after I watch it, it's really hard for me to like recommend it to people beyond being like, this is like, it's definitely like a well-made movie and you're gonna have a lot to think about afterwards or talk about. But it's not like, it's by no means like a good time.
Yeah.
I don't think.
No,
But
well, it's an interesting, and that's why I think it has to be so campy, and so the dialogue has to be so unrealistic because it's very
Right.
much like you were talking about, Jesse. It's normally it would be like people have, the kids have these thoughts, or teenagers feel this way, but not, 9 times out of 10 nobody's acting on it.
Right.
And this is kind of like this movie has to be so campy and so unrealistic in terms of how people speak and all of this stuff, because it's gonna follow through with like the reality of like you feel that way, you think that, and you think of an action to how you feel, and you're gonna react to it. It's not like you're gonna just write it in your diary and let it sit there. It's like, no, every time in this movie, if somebody's like, yeah, I wish that person was gone, like then it happens. And
Right.
so I think that's probably why they had to couch it in so much, um, just this campy dialogue and the absurdity of like these scenes, whether it's the funerals or what have you, or like the school program that the counselor runs, for the TV station. Like, you have to make it so absurd because um, you have to show that like there's not going to be you're not going to see the reaction you want if you do that to the person, um, which I think, at least to me, I found it to be really effective.
Mm.
What did you all make? I think we talked about her a little bit, but I feel like this is kind of the quintessential Winona Ryder. I mean, people know her from Beetlejuice to Little Women. Now people know her from Stranger Things, but I feel like Heather's is probably the one that a lot of people point to for Winona Ryder. What did you all
Huh.
make of her in this?
Wait, who did you say that they were? Not, was it Demi Moore that you said?
Jennifer Connelly.
I get them confused. I think that she's perfect in it. I love that she kind of plays. I mean, she's like cute enough that she like seemed to blend with the popular girls, but she's got this perfect like, I don't know, kind of precocious teenager girl that she's able to bring up, like where she's smart, but she's kind of self aware, and she's I don't know. I think she does a great job with it, and she just she's got these cute little big eyes too, where she just I don't know. She's fresh. I think she's fresh.
yeah, I think she's so good. I was shocked when you said she was like 15 or 6,
I
15.
know.
She like carries it really well. Like
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think she like comes off as a very like mature actor and is like really
Mm,
delivering these like campy lines better than like most actors or actresses could. I feel like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just really maybe it's like her voice. She has such a distinct voice too. So when you pair that with like the ridiculous lines like "Are we going to prom or are we going to hell?" Like
Mm-hmm.
such a good line, but like in her voice, it like it's even better for some reason. Like I don't know. I think she's great in that.
Well, she knows the kind how to like. She really like exudes the personality of the character. Like, she does have like this kind of precociousness, like you said. It's this deadpan, but I think like the way that's what makes the movie interesting. The way that that's kind of challenged throughout the movie. She starts having to kind of tear that down a little bit as the movie goes along, as these people keep dying, because she's, after a while, like, you can't be, I think she yells at Christian Slater, like, like, this isn't like after a while you have to kind of like you kind of have to accept like what's going on. You can't just like kind of just pass it off and be like, it's whatever, nobody's going to care in the end. And it's like she has to kind of like work through that to a degree, so that she's also not numb to other people, like the Heathers are, and a lot of the other people are in the movie.
mhm.
I also have to say that I enjoy just how over the top obnoxious the football player guys were. Just
Oh my
like
god,
outrageously over the top.
they are
Yep.
such characters.
They're just
Yeah.
like even like the whole sequence when they kill them in the woods is just cracking me up, because one, they did the one. What?
Sorry, the police officers in that sequence
Oh
suck
my gosh.
so much this time. Like that guy just like acting like he was on like Columbo or something, running through the woods. Like,
Yeah.
I had this obviously podcast, so that's unhelpful. But still, he was so funny.
Well, I also like how they made a whole thing about they were trying to present them as gay, and so they're like pulling out the different items that they're gonna have in their bag, and
Mineral water.
she's like mineral water, and then like the cop like looks at the bag, and he's like, well, we know what happened here.
Is all you gotta know. And he pulls
Well,
it out and he's like,
You don't even need to know. It's so
oh my
good.
god.
yeah. No, it's genuinely pretty funny a lot of the time, even though like it is dealing like handling these very like kind of dark, messed up topics. A lot of the times it is pretty it is pretty funny. Like I mean, again, like the scene in the funeral when the guy's just crying, going, "I love my dead gay son," is fantastic.
Yeah.
Like just A plus camp going on there.
Well, in the first funeral for Heather, when they go cut through all the prayers of like the high schoolers and stuff, I
Mhm.
thought that was a really, really
Oh my
fun,
god.
well done scene. So like
Yeah.
having like these selfish prayers, like kind of about Heather, kind of not.
Yeah, what did y'all make of just that like kind of that part of the satire of like, you know, the other teenagers in the high school didn't really care about her, but are using this tragedy to kind of uh not really prop themselves up, but like just kind of using it to using it almost to their advantage to just kind of get away with things. Being jaded in how people would react to a suicide of a classmate.
I don't know. I mean, I think on the one hand, maybe there's some authenticity to it too, where they would kind of be sitting there thinking, man, I'm supposed to like be feeling sad right now, but actually she was such a bitch. um and like that's what's running through my head. Like I can remember when I was a little kid, I had to attend this funeral, and I remember the priest or whatever like was asking us all to think of like a pleasant memory of the person, and like the only memory I could think of, this was a cousin of mine, and could think of this memory where she had slapped me, and the only memory I could think of at her funeral was like when she slapped me. And so I feel like it might not be completely unrealistic for people to be sitting there thinking I'm supposed to be thinking of like nice things, but actually like this girl was like such a bitch to me and everybody around us. And like this is like sad and confusing and odd, but also, mm,
Yeah, well, it reminds me like how when people die, it's like no matter who they are, it's like, oh, it's just the saddest thing. Like when Rush Limbaugh died, really, who gives a fuck? Like that dude was a monumental asshole
right.
and was a piece of shit that like ruined a lot of the world. Like he died, who gives a shit if he dies? It's like there's a scale. It's like the only people you can be mean about who have died is Hitler, and then everybody else, it's just like you got to be kind of nice, and you're like,
Come
no,
on.
no, some people die, like when can we just be like that person died, be like, I mean that's sad, but she was kind of a bitch and not a great person.
Like
So
Heather
like,
was, like,
yeah, like I mean it's just like, um yeah.
like, I mean, it's clearly a scene that, is supposed to be whatever. I don't know. But I also do think that there's some layer of like genuineness, I think, or some layer of like maybe that would kind of be how that would play out in some of their heads. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I feel similarly to y'all. I think like there is like a level of authenticity to it, at
Yeah.
least in terms of how like a lot of kids would react. I do think like they wouldn't always verbalize it, but this movie in a lot of ways is about like those kind of things that kids don't necessarily verbalize, but like are thinking, saying, gesturing towards each other, anyways. Um, so I think like a lot of kids or teens in this situation would have a similar reaction, and like especially with how this school, like we already talked about how poorly the adults are like handling the situation. There's no like feeling of grief around the school. It's actually mostly like you said, Zach, like a moment for clout. Weirdly,
Mhm.
like the school gets noticed and gets talked about. I think like even maybe some of the other Heathers mention how it's like putting them on the map or something as like the suicide school or something, and it's just so screwed up. And there's also the level of like the layer too where it barely digs into this with like Heather's murder, but like
Mm-hmm.
the idea of like someone's death adding a lot of depth to their character in other people's eyes, like the way she writes her suicide note, people were like, "Wow, I didn't know Heather like
Mm-hmm.
had these kind of thoughts or was capable of like the like even using this word or like having these opinions or thoughts
She
or
used
like this,
myriad correctly.
yeah, using this deep having this deep outlook on life." And so like in a way it like celebrate. I don't know. Like that sounds bad, but like it digs into that a little bit where we do tend to like just venerate people who have died, regardless of like their situation. Like no one liked her, but all of a sudden like oh she was like this deep thoughtful person, even though she was like an asshole to everyone at school.
Yeah. You mentioning like that people use it for clout reminds me that a little bit of that reminds me of World's Greatest Dad with Robin Williams.
Yeah, I thought about that movie too a little bit. That is
Yeah,
a dark fucking movie.
it's another dark, super dark movie about death and autoerotic asphyxiation. um, any last thoughts on Heather's before we go? I mean, my kind of thing is like still like sharp movie. I think it's one that should get talked about more around less John Hughes and throw this in a little bit more.
I'm glad you liked it.
It's fun.
Yeah,
I was sold it. I love my dead gay son, so
I love my dead
If
gay
you weren't
son.
sure about halfway through,
I was like, I don't know, and then he dropped that, and I was like, that's a great line.
Is it? This is a Zach approved movie.
That was just a great, I was, that immediately I was like, that's a great line.
That's so silly.
It's such a silly line. But yeah, did y'all have any thoughts?
no, not really.
Oh, all right, Jesse.
It's good. No, I think it's I think it's fun. Fun? I don't know. I think it's a time. It's so very.
It is very.
It's just so very.
I think you should just go under it with like how Reed described it. If Ferris Bueller was a serial killer, and honestly, Ferris Bueller might be a serial killer.
He might be.
I don't not like what did he go on to do?
I don't trust anyone that likes like that their takeaway from Ferris Bueller's Day Off is like Ferris is like
I like that guy. Yeah, yeah. I'm team.
But you can't want to be like him or like him too much.
No, in Ferris Bueller, I'm team Cameron because it's Connor Roy. So got to support con heads.
Man, that would have been an interesting podcast episode. Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
We should do that one sometime.
I think that would be fun. I haven't watched it in ages. Next series, it's just one movie. It's just Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah, we can do 80s movies that are shoved down our faces constantly.
Just John Hughes movies.
Ferris Bueller and like Back to the Future.
Just do like the 80s weren't really that good, people. Period. It brought us Ronald Reagan.
Oh God.
The
and this one barely is an 80s. It's 80. Wait, is this 89?
Yeah, it's 89. It feels very like tail end 80s, but I think a lot of like you can kind of see some early 90s in it. Like it feels closer to, honestly, it feels closer to like a Clueless than it does a like Pretty in Pink or something.
All right, which that's fine. Clueless is way better than Pretty in Pink.
Clueless is great.
Pretty in Pink sucks.
Yeah.
It's such a stupid movie.
Sorry. All right. Well, that will wrap up this episode of Cinematary. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cinematary, on Twitter and Instagram at Cinematary, and on Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/Cinematary, where we post all the movies that we talked about in this episode. If you'd like to support the show, whether it's $1, $5, whatever you'd like to give, remember, if you do, even if it's just $1, if you donate, you get to pick a movie. So if you want to hear us eviscerate Ferris Bueller, give us $1.
Please do. I would. That sounds great. That sounds like a good use of my night.
Yeah, I mean, just give us $1. We'll eviscerate Ferris Bueller. But thank you to our patrons: Cam, Chad Newsom, Corey Willingham, Candace Sisson, Ron Hayes, Teresa Marsathi, Titus Arthur, and Tyler Chandler. Thank you so much for your patronage. Next week, we're bringing Young Critics to a conclusion with 1985's Angel's Egg. We're going to do a little anime, folks. Do a little anime.
This was also a Jessy pick.
Yeah, another Jessy. A lot of Jessy picks here,
We're ending with the Jessy picks. I actually haven't seen Angel's Eggs, so I'm about to get egged.
We're about to get egged.
I'm about to get egged.
We're gonna make T-shirts for next week's episode.
We got egged. We got egged.
If you have not followed us though on Twitter and Instagram, just kind of a second plug on those. We'll be posting stuff from TIFF on both Twitter and Instagram, and then we might do the video reactions. I don't know. We'll see how we feel. But we'll definitely have reactions to those movies in the episodes. But definitely follow our Twitter and Instagram accounts if you would like to see what predominantly me am feeling about movies that we saw in Toronto. So
why do you say predominantly you? Andrew and Reid will only a little bit have feelings?
Well, Reid seems like he would post on Twitter and Instagram. I don't find Andrew posted on Instagram, and he doesn't have an Instagram and doesn't have a Twitter, so his thoughts are just going into the ether.
Andrew's just gonna get a cowbell and run down the streets of Toronto, being like, "Here's what I thought."
I thought that Wendell and Wild is great.
I wonder if he can grow a mustache between now and then, so that he'll be mustachioed with you guys.
You'll give him that challenge.
Then we'll have a video episode.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Until next week. Thank y'all for listening. We'll see you then.
Stay cool.